Hail, Internet! It's Paul. It's Matt, the Dork Lords. We're here today talking about the Lazarus Project, Season 2, Episode 2. We open with the newly rescued Dr. Sampson talking with Wes at the Lazarus Project. He knows about the Lazarus Project because, of course, he does. Their security is still terrible. They're always surprised when people know about him. What? You know about our organization? Yeah. Yes. We all do. And we hear about his involvement with a group called the Time Break Initiative. We go flashback to 2012. Basically, we'll talk more about what that whole process. But basically, after killing a dog, which makes them terrible people, unredeemable, might as well kill the whole group. They accidentally create a second singularity, effectively destroying the world and I suppose the universe. I mean, I don't know. Is it like a localized time loop, or is it like the whole universe keeps going in a loop?
We don't know. Yeah, we need people from other planets to weigh in.
That's right. So at the very least, Earth screwed due to these experiments. We end with our Lazarus Project crew traveling to the secret Time Break Initiative base in Switzerland to retrieve a serum that's needed to allow for time travel. While there, alarms go off. George sees someone through a door. Zhang kisses Archie, and the whole place explodes. Reset. In the reset, George gets on the subway. He meets up with the teenage version of Janet and Rebrov's daughter, Becky. She's there to warn George about a guy named Bryson, a man who's coming there to kill him on the train. Bryson shows up. He's the man George saw through the window at the Time Break Initiative. And I don't know if you caught this, Paul, but he's also in the photo of Janet and Becky, the one that was left in the time travel chair. There's a picture, and there's three people.
Yeah.
He's
that.
The other guy. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I thought I was being clever. All right. Anyway, that guy, Bryson, points a gun at George, says he's a monster, which is kind of tough to argue after the events of season 1. I mean, he's a good guy, but anyway. And then we cut to credits. So, all that said, Paul.
Yes.
What'd you think of season 2, episode 2?
The quality keeps up there. 8, 9. I was pleased with what happened. I like the sort of complexity of what's going on with Sarah. This show does a good job when it brings in other characters of having them be substantive. That scientist, he was really a three-dimensional character.
Yeah, Dr. Sampson.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So and they're clearly developing something. I'm now more curious than ever. I don't know if I thought about it the last time I watched. I watched it a couple of times.
Okay.
But I think in the first season, I was, it triggered my ear when George said that he was there to meet someone named Sarah. Now, why? Well, how did he hear about Sarah before that? What's going on with that?
Okay. So you're thinking similarly, like somebody seeded that whole thing ahead of time. Which is kind of what I was referring to.
The fact, it could just be something that's there because that's what happens every time he is there. But it's every time he's there. It's like, it's like, I've got to do this. And he doesn't know who Sarah is. He has to meet someone named Sarah.
Good point. Well, I was also thinking that maybe there was something about the fact that, he and Shiv are these people that seem to naturally be able to perceive these time loops. Like, is there something about that somehow I don't know,
sure,
that was somehow preordained or something? But yeah, so we do have in this situation, Becky, Janet and Rebrov's daughter, has shown up at a particular moment in time in order to warn George. And so obviously somebody put her up to it.
Yes.
So, I enjoyed it a lot too. I mean, I'll say this, that it is a dense plot. It does a great job, really, of juggling the number of players.
Yeah.
So that I'm not always sure of everybody I'm thinking of, but I'm sure enough. I'm like, yes, I understand this relationship and why this is important. But yeah, I mean, the list of names keeps growing, and I assume it's going to get bigger.
And I don't know why I'm not surprised
versions of themselves.
that Ross is mentioned again. I guess I thought that, we'd be done with him, but no. And I think from the trailers, we see that he does return, but...
Okay, yeah. So Ross was Archie's love interest and fellow agent back in season 1. And they had that arc where they kept repeating, and they were trying to stop this, like, Russian war missiles being fired. He's killed in front of her. They stop the missiles, and so we have this really tear-filled scene where Archie's begging Wes to reset, and she's like, "Nope."
And after Ross, made sure that they redid it again just to save Archie, who got shot in the head, and Ross made sure that
he got her back.
Archie.
Yeah. He fixed it so that things would go awry so that she'd come back. And so here we see that Ross appears to have been involved in the destruction of Dr. Gray's lab. Dr. Gray is the person who was like the mentor to all these other scientists about time travel. She mysteriously in 2012 she died and her lab caught fire, and as a result the Time Break Initiative herded up these 6 scientists and moved them underground for their protection.
Now, I wonder if it's going to end up being a big, wow, why didn't they ask Archie before? Or at least tell her about this situation? Because just asking her about, what about that burn, is not actually telling her why you want to know.
Right.
So, he's been telling Shiv there because,
she's playing it off. I mean, she on the surface level, she seems to not realize that there's anything weird about Ross getting a big burn on his arm in the same year that there was this big fire. But I wonder if maybe she does know, but she's just not saying anything. I was under the impression that perhaps she is aware of some.
Yeah, she could be. She could be. The way she looks at him is very, I'm not telling you that answer.
So the implication is that Ross was under orders from Wes to kill Dr. Gray and destroy her work.
Yeah.
And that's what George is thinking has happened back in 2012, and he's.
You at least the last time we were talking about this seemed to, I don't know, you might have been imagining a greater conspiracy for Wes.
Yeah, I still am.
She just wants to keep people from going back too far in time.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah. Obviously, she's got more to play, I think, than she's letting on. It's like, I just run the Lazarus Project, and I, this fell into my lap, and I do it. I mean, she's meeting with Dr. Gray, or at least attending her seminar. She's got her book in her desk, and I'm just thinking the way that George at least is suspecting, and the show hence is pushing us in the direction of Wes ordered this death, ordered her to die.
Sure.
It was interesting to me. Did these scientists basically then spent the next 12 years or whatever underground? Right. Did they have families? Did they not? Because they didn't bring their families. They just it was like these 6 scientists suddenly were taken off the map,
right?
And you will live in this underground bunker. So it's a big ask, I'll say.
Sure.
Hey, but I had a thing. What was I thinking? Another name. I was saying the names keep growing. We're introduced to the leader, apparently, of the Time Break Initiative.
Robin Lerner?
Lerner. So that's another guy and he indicates he's died several times before.
Yes,
so
yes,
is he been in the Lazarus Project then? Or is he a former agent like Reborov? He's also the guy that I got the opinion, I don't know that I'm 100% convinced of this, but I think it's true. He's the guy that in what would be the present-ish, slight past or whatever, somewhere in 2024, he arranged for Zhang to kidnap Janet and Janet's daughter.
Right. Yes.
And so that's the whole thing where Zhang's like, oh, this man ordered me to kidnap Janet, and then I want to go find that man or whatever. And so that's when she and Archie go off kind of in search of his house or whatever. Sure. We don't know if it's his house, but that was the idea I was getting, is that's
sure.
Lerner in the present. So he has been time traveling in some capacity, and we don't know about that. So we're going to learn more about that guy.
Sure.
Maybe part of the reasoning for this little humorous vignette is that Samson's been underground for so long, but he hasn't seen all of these films about time travel.
Yes.
Like, what, you haven't seen Back to the Future? You haven't seen Terminator?
Yeah.
Groundhog Day, which is their own way of meta referencing their own show. Which is
yes, of course. That was good. Yeah.
Because he says he's been doing science, so he doesn't have time for pop culture.
Yeah. No, he
but
doesn't.
Paul,
yes.
You know something he did have time for, so to speak?
Sure. Yeah. Well, when he was a teenager,
baby.
not getting any sex, then he could have time for things like that. But movies,
so he describes in his chat with Wes.
No date movies, but yes, he has time for some archaic books.
Some archaic books. Boo 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 boo. Yeah, during his chat with Wes, Time Break Initiative's experiments, he describes them as, he says, we dug too greedily and too deep.
What they should have done is that when he said like Lord of the Rings, and he'd be like, what? What are you talking about?
Well, of course, Wes gets the reference immediately, because she's also obviously read Lord of the Rings. Should have said delved instead of dug, but I'll give him credit. He's basically quoting the Fellowship of the Ring. He's comparing the experiments that the Time Break Initiative was doing to the dwarves of Moria, obsessively mining for mithril till they accidentally unleashed a Balrog, because everything comes back to Lord of the Rings. Woohoo! Done it! Mission accomplished. I think we're done with the show. I think we don't have to watch the Lazarus Project.
There you go. Yeah, really. Yeah, there you go.
We just watch every show.
They couldn't possibly come out with any more references to Lord of the Rings. Mic drop.
You were talking about the cool way that this show develops these relationships and such. And in one way, we get this thing with Sarah. So Sarah, she has a sexual encounter with George, so she still has feelings for him, but she's really confused and conflicted because she now knows, because she's been able to now, perceive time loops.
Right.
She now knows that she had several now dead loops in which she met and fell in love with this guy named Cormac.
Right.
A guy that she now just watches play acoustic guitar on the street. Like, oh, man. George sees their very unlikely meeting because he had as you mentioned, he has all these times where he keeps trying to meet someone named Sarah, and he finally meets her. So he sees that as fate. The one time we met was the one time that loop ended. She sees it as a mistake. Like, since it ultimately resulted in her being engaged to the jerk that she was trying to break up with at that party, and she is separated from both Cormac, who she had this loving relationship with, and George, in a way, right? She also had a loving relationship with. So she's got...
Well, I think a mistake is perhaps she's unclear about it. She, is suffering the irony of being with the one that she wanted that night. She was going to tell him that she wanted to ruin their friendship the fun way, and then she sees him kissing another woman many, many, many times. So she's available for George, except George can't get his crap together until after she's gotten with Cormac many, many times.
It's interesting how George sees this as this, like, oh, see, we were destined for each other. And she's like, no, actually, I had some really good outcomes that did not involve you.
Yeah. And that's what, I mean, I think if I'm right, that something, and I think it would be somebody who puts him on that path,
gotcha.
That shouldn't be comforting, actually. It's like, it's like you did that just so that he would do the things he did.
Right, so that he would eventually bring her in. And
so that's not fate. That's, that's man trying to have things,
That
it's like
is manipulation.
It's like, that party does look like, I'm sure they had plenty of old footage from that night that they could use, but I'm wondering if we're going to see another person who's sort of like, I still can't get them together in the party.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I like that that theory, good sir. Okay, so when Zhang kidnapped Janet and Becky, what they did to convince Janet to go back in the past is they sent Becky back first.
Yes.
And then it was like, well, if you want to see your daughter, you got to go back. And so...
in the past or in heaven.
Right, yeah. So she goes back in time. So the fact that Becky has now gotten up to, well, she's probably like 18 or 19 now. She's somewhere around 20 years old. And she's alive and helping out George in the present.
Yes.
At least she survived that whole experience.
Sure.
We know that. Oh, also, we do learn this. I think it's Samson tells Reborov about Zhang's involvement. So Reborov now knows that Zhang kidnapped his wife and daughter.
Yes.
I don't think he's going to be pleased the next time they meet.
Yeah, probably not.
I would guess. You did what now? I'm sorry. We're on the same team, are we? Okay. No, okay. So that will be, I assume that meeting is coming. And now that she and Archie apparently have feelings for each other, there'll be a bit of a thing there where,
sure.
Allegiances are tested, I guess I will say. I was a little confused, and I don't know if this is a plot hole or if they're just like, it's fine. But we saw in this episode Shiv bedridden, and he's having George is cleaning out his pee bag or whatever.
Right, sure, yeah.
And then he's on the mission to go raid the Time Break Initiative base, which is all happening within the space of a couple of weeks. So I'm like, wait, I thought I don't know how he got so agile, in the time span. I was like, I would have liked to have gotten some reference there of maybe I don't know. I needed a 10-minute montage of him getting better. No, I don't know. Anyway,
it's like, we can take this colostomy bag off, and you're good to go.
Good to go.
Here's your gun.
Actually,
yeah.
The bag was what was keeping you here in this bed. He recovers quickly. That Shiv. Good job on you, sir.
Sure. Yeah.
It's exciting. I don't know where exactly it's going, except that they're going to go to the past. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But what is Wes's involvement? I can't really spell it out, except that she's involved more than we are being told. How is Becky involved in all this, and how did she get to the future? And then somebody tell her to go protect George, because obviously that means George has something more to do, I guess.
Yeah, that is obvious.
Which probably means going to the past. Anyway, so there's a lot of paradoxes coming our way, and it's exciting. It's well paced, and as you say, the incredibly complex plot does not.
It doesn't feel weighed down by
character moments. We do get good character development moments, so that's a big compliment to the show, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll be back talking about episode 3. Thank you as always, Paul. Appreciate it, good sir.
No problem.
And we'll talk to everybody next time. Bye.
Bye.